"Professor, you might want to stop that recording." The words were quiet, almost casual, but they were the first words any student had managed to speak in nearly 30 seconds. Professor Vale froze beside the control console. Across the enormous amphitheater, more than 200 alien students sat rigid in their seats. Some had covered their auditory membranes. Others had instinctively lowered themselves beneath their desks. One insectoid student in the front row had curled all 6 limbs around its torso and activated an emergency pheromone beacon. And still the sound continued. A low vibration rolled through the lecture hall. It was deep, steady, almost mechanical. The transparent water containers on the desks trembled. Several students trembled with them. Professor Vale stared toward the only person in the entire auditorium who did not appear terrified. Maya Rourke, human, 22 years old, exchange student from Earth, currently sitting in the 5th row with one elbow on her desk and the strangest expression on her face. Not fear, not concern, a smirk. Professor Vale narrowed his 3 golden eyes. Student Rourke, this recording was obtained from a quarantined human vessel found drifting near the Helix Passage. It contains the vocalizations of an unidentified terrestrial apex predator. The vibration continued. Maya slowly raised one eyebrow. Yeah. Professor Vale waited. Maya pointed toward the speakers. That's just a house cat. Silence. Then the recording changed. The rumbling abruptly stopped. A sharp hiss exploded through the speakers. HSSSSSSSSSS. Half the room screamed. A bird-like student launched 3 meters into the air before remembering the ceiling existed. A gelatinous student simply collapsed into a puddle. Professor Vale slammed the emergency stop control. The audio died. For several seconds, no one moved. Then every face in the room turned toward Maya. She looked around. What? Professor Vale slowly stepped away from the console. A house cat. Yeah. That creature was documented aboard a vessel where 3 autonomous security drones disappeared. Maya shrugged. Could still be a cat. The sound contained subsonic frequencies powerful enough to trigger involuntary fear responses in 13 known species. Cats purr. The creature possesses an estimated respiratory rhythm indicating significant muscular capacity. Still a cat. The final vocalization was categorized by 3 xenobiologists as a pre-strike threat display. Maya nodded. That part was definitely a cat. Professor Vale's feathers began rising along his shoulders. The students noticed. They had learned that when Professor Vale's feathers rose, he was either angry or preparing to evacuate. Occasionally both. A student named Taryn raised one trembling appendage. Maya. She looked toward him. Taryn belonged to the Nairi species, small herbivorous mammals whose ancestors had spent several million years being eaten by almost everything larger than themselves. His enormous black eyes were fixed on Maya. You are saying humans voluntarily permit organisms capable of producing that sound inside residential structures? Sure. Why? They're cute. Taryn stared at her. Maya stared back. You asked. Another student slowly lifted her hand. Do they enter human settlements looking for prey? Sometimes. Several students inhaled sharply. Maya sighed. Okay, you're making it sound worse than it is. Professor Vale stepped forward. I fail to see how it could sound worse. Well, technically we invite them inside. The room erupted. Professor Vale slapped both hands. Against the podium. Silence. It took almost a minute. When the students finally settled, Maya was still smiling. Professor Vale looked offended on behalf of science itself. Student Rourke, humanity's tendency to trivialize lethal organisms is well documented. Your homeworld contains venomous reptiles, pack predators, parasitic insects, aggressive megafauna, and microscopic organisms capable of destroying entire organ systems. Sounds about right. You swim recreationally in oceans containing predatory fish. Yes. You build settlements in regions where the atmosphere itself forms rotating columns capable of destroying buildings. We call those tornadoes. You intentionally climb mountains where the oxygen concentration is insufficient to sustain normal consciousness. People get bored. Professor Vale's feathers rose higher. And now you expect this class to believe that the creature responsible for that recording is kept inside human homes because it is aesthetically pleasing? Maya considered that. Pretty much. A horrified whisper swept through the auditorium. Professor Vale turned toward the massive holographic display behind him. This audio file was recovered 2 weeks ago from the Terran commercial transport Meridian Dawn. Maya's smile vanished. That caught everyone's attention. Professor Vale continued. The vessel was found drifting outside regulated shipping lanes. Main power was functional. Life support was operating. Cargo remained intact. Maya leaned forward. What happened to the crew? Professor Vale hesitated. That is currently unknown. How many? 27. And none were aboard? No. Maya sat straighter. The joking expression was gone. Professor Vale noticed. So perhaps you now understand why we are treating the creature in this recording seriously. Maya looked toward the silent speakers. Play it again. The professor blinked. You were laughing at it 30 seconds ago. Play it again. Something in her voice changed. Professor Vale studied her for a moment before touching the console. Volume reduced to 30%. The recording began. Maya closed her eyes. The class watched her. The rumble continued. Then came a soft clicking noise. Barely audible. 3 clicks. The pause. Then another. Maya's eyes opened. The hiss followed. HSSSSSSSSSS. Professor Vale stopped the recording. Maya stared at the display. Professor Vale tilted his head. What? That cat wasn't attacking. You identified the second sound as a threat display. It is. Maya stood. But not because the cat was hunting. Professor Vale's feathers slowly flattened. What is the distinction? Maya descended the steps toward the front of the hall. A cat makes that sound when something gets too close. To its prey. To itself. She reached the holographic console. Play the 5 seconds before the purring starts. Professor Vale did. Static. A faint mechanical hum. Then something else. Maya leaned toward the speaker. There. Professor Vale magnified the waveform. A tiny pattern appeared beneath the larger audio signal. 3 narrow spikes. The professor frowned. That frequency was categorized as mechanical interference. It isn't. How can you know? Maya looked at him. Because the cat heard it. The room became very quiet. Professor Vale glanced toward the waveform. Maya pointed. The purring isn't the important part. Her finger moved to the 3 tiny spikes. That is. Terran swallowed. What made it? Maya slowly shook her head. I have no idea. Professor Vale looked toward the class. For the first time that day, he appeared genuinely uncertain. Maya continued. But I know cats. She tapped the waveform. And whatever made that sound had one scared enough to warn it away. A cold feeling moved through the auditorium. The students had spent the last 10 minutes learning that the terrifying sound in the recording belonged to something humans allowed to sleep beside them. Now the human was telling them that something else had frightened it. Professor Vale accessed the metadata. The recording was captured by an internal maintenance drone. Where? Cargo Section 12. What was being transported? Professor Vale hesitated. That information is restricted. Maya stared at him. 27 people vanished from a human ship, and you're playing the audio in a university lecture? The vessel was inspected before the data was transferred. By who? Before Professor Vale could answer, the rear doors opened. 4 armored figures entered the auditorium. The students immediately became silent. The individual at the front was enormous. Commander Rask of Interstellar Biosecurity stood nearly 2.5 meters tall, covered in overlapping gray plates that resembled natural armor. He carried no visible weapon. He did not need one. The 2 soldiers behind him carried enough. Professor Vale bowed his head. Commander. Rask ignored him. His dark eyes settled on Maya. You are the human. Maya glanced at herself. Last time I checked. You recognize the audio? The loud part. Rask walked toward the front. And the secondary signal? No. You claimed the animal was afraid. Defensive. Explain. Maya crossed her arms. Cats don't usually hiss at nothing. Rask stopped 3 meters away. Usually. They also hiss at vacuum cleaners, cucumbers, their own reflections, closed doors, open doors, other cats, people wearing hats. Professor Vale rubbed the side of his head. Rask did not react. Maya continued. But this sounds different. How? She turned back toward the waveform. Listen to the sequence. Purring. Then the clicking starts. Purring stops. Cat goes quiet for almost 2 seconds. She tapped the display. Then the hiss. Rask remained silent. Maya enlarged the final portion of the recording. And listen right after it. The sound played. Then silence. Thud. A violent impact. A scratching noise. Static. Recording terminated. Maya looked at Rask. The cat didn't attack the drone. Professor Vale stared at her. How can you possibly determine that from audio alone? Because a cat hitting something doesn't sound like a cargo container being thrown across a room. No one spoke. Rask finally turned toward Professor Vale. End the lecture. Maya looked at him sharply. Why? This information is restricted. So you do know what was in cargo section 12? Rask's head turned slowly back toward her. That is not your concern. It became my concern when you said the ship was human. The Meridian Dawn entered interstellar territory. It falls under coalition jurisdiction. 27 humans disappeared. Rask stepped closer. And you are a student. Maya did not move. For 3 seconds, human and alien stared at each other. Professor Vale seemed to realize he was standing between two individuals whose species had independently evolved the concept of refusing to back down. He quietly moved aside. Then the university lights went out. Not dimmed. Not flickered. Darkness swallowed the amphitheater. Someone screamed. Emergency lights immediately activated along the floor. Red illumination spread across the room. Commander Rask's soldiers drew their weapons. A calm artificial voice sounded from the ceiling. Attention! Local power disruption detected in Xenobiological Containment Wing. Rask turned toward the door. The voice continued. Containment integrity uncertain. The commander froze. Maya saw it. For the first time, Rask looked afraid. Professor Vale whispered. Commander! Rask touched a device at his wrist. Control, report. Static answered. Control. Nothing. One of his soldiers stepped closer. Commander, internal network is unresponsive. Rask looked toward Maya. Her eyes narrowed. What did you bring here? Rask said nothing. That ship wasn't empty when you found it, was it? Professor Vale stared at him. Commander! Rask's jaw tightened. We recovered biological material. The room erupted into horrified whispers. Maya took one step toward him. From cargo section 12? Yes. You brought it to the academy? The university possesses the nearest level 6 xenobiological facility. Maya stared at him as though he had just announced he stored explosives beside an active furnace. What kind of biological material? An organism. Alive. Rask hesitated. That was enough. Maya laughed once. There was no humor in it. Oh, that's fantastic. Professor Vale's feathers spread. What organism? Rask activated his wrist display. A hologram appeared. At first, Maya thought she was looking at an empty specimen chamber. Then something moved. A distortion. Like light bending around glass. A shape clung to the ceiling. Thin. Almost transparent. 8 limbs folded against a narrow body. Professor Vale stepped backward. What is that? We do not know. Maya looked at Rask. You brought an unidentified organism off a ghost ship into a university. It was sedated. Was. Rask ignored the question. The creature's outer tissue refracts visible light. Thermal imaging provides inconsistent results. It appears capable of lowering its surface temperature to match its surroundings. Taryn whispered from the seats. It is invisible? Not entirely. The emergency lights flickered. Every student looked upward. Maya pointed toward the hologram. Does it make clicking sounds? Rask did not answer. Maya's voice hardened. Commander. Yes. The red lights suddenly felt colder. Professor Vale whispered. The secondary audio. Rask shut off the hologram. The recovered specimen was believed to be the only one. Maya stared at him. Believed? We conducted a full scan. On something that can hide from your scans? Rask's silence answered for him. Then something scraped inside the wall. Every head turned. Taryn stopped breathing. Professor Vale slowly backed toward the podium. One of Rask's soldiers aimed at the wall. The scratching stopped. Maya looked toward the ceiling. Everyone stay quiet. Rask glanced at her. You do not command this situation. Then command it better. Another scrape. This time from behind the auditorium. Closer. A student whimpered. Maya listened. Nothing. Her face changed. That's it. Rask raised one arm. His soldiers spread out. Students remained seated. Maya stared toward the dark upper corner of the room. Your guns have motion tracking? Yes. Turn it off. Rask almost looked insulted. Why? If that thing hunts the way I think it does, it already knows you're tracking it. That conclusion is unsupported. So was bringing it here. A soldier suddenly swung his weapon left. Movement. He fired. Blue energy flashed across the room. The bolt struck the wall. Students screamed. For half a second, the flash illuminated something near the ceiling. Something huge. Then it vanished. Professor Vale stumbled backward. I saw it. Rask shouted. Doors. The security doors slammed shut. Maya stared upward. Congratulations. Now we're locked in with it. Rask ignored her. Defensive formation. His soldiers positioned themselves around the students. Maya shook her head. It's going to wait. What? It attacked people on the Meridian Dawn. You cannot know that. It scared a cat. Rask made a frustrated sound. You continue referencing that animal as though it were a military sensor. Compared to us? Maya looked toward the darkness above. It kind of is. Another click came from the ceiling. Maya lowered her voice. Humans see pretty well. Cats see movement better. They hear frequencies we can't. They can detect tiny vibrations. Smell things we miss. Professor Vale stared at her. And you keep them as recreational companions. Professor, focus. The clicking stopped. Maya looked toward Rask. You said you recovered biological material. Yes. What else did you recover? Cargo. From the ship. Yes. Personal effects? Yes. Animals? Rask said nothing. Maya stepped toward him. You found the cat. The commander's expression changed. Professor Vale stared between them. Rask finally answered. Yes. Maya closed her eyes. You have got to be kidding me. The animal was discovered inside an emergency storage compartment. Alive? Yes. Where is it? Quarantine. Same wing as the invisible nightmare? It is held in a separate chamber. Maya stared at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. Rask did not like that smile. No. I didn't say anything. You are going to suggest releasing it? Absolutely. No. Commander. I will not release an unclassified terrestrial predator inside an occupied academic facility. Maya pointed toward the ceiling. You already released one predator. That was accidental. So let's intentionally release the one that knows how to find it. Professor Vale's mouth opened, then closed. Taryn raised his hand from behind his desk. Everyone looked at him. He slowly lowered it. Apologies. Habit. Maya turned back to Rask. The cat survived that ship. So? Your crew didn't. Rask's eyes narrowed. Maya continued. 27 humans disappeared. Security drones vanished. Whatever that thing is, it hunted everything on board. She pointed toward the corridor beyond the sealed doors. Except the cat. No one spoke. The cat survived. Rask looked toward one of his soldiers. Status of containment sector? The soldier checked his device. Network unavailable. Manual access only. Rask turned toward Maya. If the animal attacks a student, it probably won't. Probably. Professor Vale made a faint choking noise. Maya ignored him. If we keep standing here arguing, the invisible thing definitely will. Another clicking sound moved across the ceiling. Rask made his decision. Sergeant, open the west maintenance route. The soldier approached a small panel. Professor Vale stared. You intend to leave the secured auditorium? Rask glanced upward. Professor, this auditorium is not secured. Something hit the ceiling hard enough to bend one of the panels. Student screamed. Rask drew his sidearm. Maya, you are coming. She nodded. Professor Vale stepped forward. Absolutely not. Everyone turned toward him. The professor swallowed. Then straightened his academic coat. She is my student. Maya smiled. That's surprisingly heroic of you. It is administrative responsibility. Still counts. Rask pointed toward the students. You remain here. Professor Vale looked offended. I am a senior xenobiologist. You fainted during the audio demonstration. That was an involuntary vascular response. You remain here. The maintenance door opened. Rask entered first. Maya followed. 2 soldiers moved behind them. The corridor beyond was almost completely dark. Emergency lights flashed every 6 meters. But. Their footsteps echoed. Maya whispered. Do you know where the cat is? Containment room C-17. How far? 300 meters. Everyone stopped. The sound came from somewhere behind them. One soldier spun. Nothing. Maya whispered. Don't shoot unless you can actually see it. We cannot see it. Then congratulations. You understand the problem. They continued. 200 meters. A broken maintenance drone lay against the wall. Its outer shell had been peeled apart. Not burned. Not cut. Peeled. Maya crouched beside it. 3 parallel scratches ran through the metal. Rask looked down. The organism possesses considerable strength. No kidding. Maya touched the floor. A dark smear crossed the surface. Blood. Rask scanned it. Unknown organic residue. Maya looked toward the corridor ahead. It's injured. How can you know? Something fought back. They reached C-17. The door stood half open. Rask immediately raised his weapon. Containment breach. Maya pushed past him. Wait. The chamber was empty. A transparent carrier sat overturned on the floor. A small food dish had been knocked aside. Maya crouched. Inside the carrier was a label. Terran domestic feline. Name, Pixel. Owner, Elena Voss. Meridian Dawn. Maya stared at it. Elena Voss. Rask looked at her. You know the name? No. Maya lifted the tag. But Pixel belonged to someone. A faint sound came from beneath a cabinet. Marrow? Every weapon in the room instantly pointed downward. Maya slapped Rask's barrel aside. Don't. 2 green eyes appeared in the darkness. Then a small gray face. The cat crawled slowly from beneath the cabinet. He was thin. One ear had been torn. A patch of fur was missing from his shoulder. But he was alive. Pixel looked at Maya. Maya lowered herself to the floor. Hey, buddy. Pixel stared. Long trip. The cat stepped closer. Rask whispered. That is the creature from the recording? No. How can you know? The recording sounded bigger. Rask stared at the cat. It weighs perhaps 5 kilograms. Exactly. Pixel sniffed Maya's hand. Then rubbed his face against her fingers. Professor Vale's voice crackled faintly through Rask's communicator. Commander! The signal was breaking up. We have activity inside the auditorium ventilation system. Rask looked toward Maya. We return immediately. Pixel suddenly froze. Every muscle in his body tightened. His ears turned toward the corridor. Maya noticed. What is it? Pixel stared past them. His back arched. His fur rose. HSSSSSSSSSS. Rask's eyes widened. The sound. Exactly like the recording. The soldiers turned. Nothing was there. Maya grabbed Pixel. Run. The wall beside them exploded. Something transparent struck the first soldier. He disappeared sideways. His body slammed against the opposite wall. Rask fired. Energy bolts flashed. 4 fractions of a second, each blast illuminated a distorted silhouette moving impossibly fast. Long arms. Hook limbs. A narrow skull. Too many joints. Pixel screamed. Maya ran. Rask grabbed the fallen soldier and dragged him toward the corridor. Move! The invisible creature struck the wall behind them. Metal folded. Maya clutched Pixel against her chest. The cat twisted violently. No, no, no. Stay with me. He clawed her jacket. She kept running. They reached the junction. Rask shouted. Left. Pixel suddenly fought harder. Maya stopped. What? Rask turned. Human. Pixel stared toward the left corridor. Growling. Maya looked right. Pixel stopped. Growl. Silence. Maya pointed right. That way. The auditorium is left. Not anymore. Rask stared. You are trusting the animal? Yes. A violent impact echoed from the left corridor. Rask stopped questioning. Right. They ran. Pixel remained rigid in Maya's arms. Every few seconds his ears twitched. At the next junction, Maya stopped. Which way, buddy? Rask stared at her. You cannot be serious. Pixel looked left. Then right. Then toward a maintenance ladder. He jumped from Maya's arms. Pixel! The cat sprinted toward the ladder. He slipped through a narrow opening beside it. Maya ran after him. Rask caught her shoulder. The passage is too small. For you. You are not entering that shaft. Maya removed her jacket. Watch me. She squeezed into the opening. Rask shouted something behind her. She ignored it. Pixel waited 10 meters ahead. His eyes reflected the emergency lights. Come on. The cat moved. Maya crawled after him. The tunnel smelled like dust, hot electronics, and something sour. Pixel stopped. Maya nearly bumped into him. What? He stared through a grate. Maya looked through. Below them was the main auditorium. Professor Vale stood beside the podium. The students had formed a tight circle. Rask had been right. Something was inside the room. Maya could see the evidence. A desk slowly moved. No visible hand touched it. It scraped across the floor. Students whimpered. Professor Vale held a small emergency shock device in both hands. The desk stopped. Maya whispered. Oh no. Pixel flattened himself against the vent. His tail flicked. The invisible creature was directly below them. Maya looked back through the shaft. Rask's voice came through her communicator. Rourke. I found it. Position. Auditorium. We are approaching. Don't come through the main door. Why? It's waiting. Below, Professor Vale backed slowly toward the students. The creature moved another desk. It was testing them, watching reactions, learning. Maya suddenly understood. The Meridian Dawn. 27 crew members. No bodies. No blood. The creature had not killed them immediately. It had studied them, separated them, probably driven them from safe compartments one by one. Predators did not always chase. Sometimes they manipulated. She looked at Pixel. You know this thing, don't you? The cat's torn ear twitched. There were scratches on his shoulder. He had fought it. And survived. Pixel turned his head toward Maya. Then, incredibly, began purring. Maya stared. What are you doing? The creature below stopped moving. Pixel purred louder. Maya's eyes widened. Oh! The creature could hear it. The purring from the original recording. It had not been random. Pixel, or another cat aboard the Meridian Dawn, had been signaling confidence. A challenge. Or bait. The transparent creature moved beneath the vent. Pixel's pupils widened. Maya whispered into the communicator. Rask. Yes. I'm going to make it visible. How? Fire suppression. Silence. Then Rask understood. The auditorium uses aerosol foam. Exactly. If activated, visibility will drop to near zero. For us. Maya looked at Pixel. Not for him. Below, the invisible creature began climbing the wall. Toward the vent. Toward Pixel. Maya reached through the grate and pulled the emergency handle. Nothing happened. But, of course. Pixel stopped purring. The creature climbed higher. Maya kicked the grate. Professor Vale looked up. His eyes widened. Maya? Professor? What are you doing in the ventilation system? Long story. Pull the red lever under your podium. Professor Vale looked down. Which red lever? The big one. There are 3. Why are there 3 red emergency levers? This is a laboratory. The creature reached the ceiling. Pixel hissed. Maya saw a distortion directly beneath them. Professor! Vale yanked the largest lever. Alarm screamed. Foam blasted from the ceiling. White clouds flooded the auditorium. Students shouted. The invisible creature appeared. Not completely, but enough. Foam stuck to its skin. For the first time, everyone saw it. 7 feet long. 6 limbs. A narrow body covered in transparent scales. A mouth that opened vertically rather than horizontally. Professor Vale stared upward. Oh! Maya shouted. Move! The creature launched. Pixel jumped first. The grate exploded downward. Cat and alien predator fell together. Students screamed. Pixel twisted in midair and landed on a desk. The creature hit the floor. Professor Vale ran. Pixel did not. The cat stood on the desk. Back arched. Teeth exposed. The creature turned toward him. Maya dropped through the vent. She landed badly, rolled, and slammed against a chair. Pain shot through her shoulder. Pixel! The predator moved toward the cat. Rask's voice thundered from the side entrance. Down! Maya flattened herself. 3 energy bolts struck the foam-covered creature. It screamed. The sound was unlike anything Maya had ever heard. Not loud, but almost beyond hearing. Several students grabbed their heads. The creature staggered, but did not fall. Rask entered with his soldiers. Again! They fired. The creature leaped onto the wall. The bolts missed. Pixel followed it with his eyes. Maya watched the cat. Not the creature. Pixel's head snapped left. Maya shouted. Left! Rask fired left before the creature became visible. The bolt hit. The predator crashed onto the floor. Rask stared at Maya. How? She pointed at Pixel. Ask him. The creature tried to rise. Pixel jumped from the desk. Pixel, no. The cat ran directly toward it. The predator swung one hooked limb. Pixel stopped instantly. The limb passed centimeters in front of his face. He jumped backward. The predator struck again. Pixel moved. Pixel dodged. The entire auditorium watched in disbelief. The creature that had outmaneuvered military targeting systems could not touch a house cat. Rask whispered. Impossible. Maya smiled despite herself. Welcome to Earth. Pixel darted left. The predator followed. It followed again. Maya realized what he was doing. He's keeping it focused. Rask raised his weapon. No clear shot. Maya looked around. Focus. Emergency barriers. Then she saw the holographic projector. Professor! Vale looked toward her. Can the projector generate a solid light containment field? For educational demonstrations, yes. Strong enough to trap that? No. Strong enough to slow it? Professor Vale hesitated. Possibly. That'll do. Maya ran for the console. The creature nearly caught Pixel. The cat launched himself onto the podium. The predator crashed through the desks behind him. Maya reached the projector. Professor. Vale joined her. Field geometry? Smallest area possible. That increases density. Good. It also risks overload. Even better. Professor Vale stared at her. Why would overload be better? Because I need it angry. I am beginning to understand why your planet has warning labels. Maya slammed the activation control. A blue rectangular field appeared around the creature. It hit the barrier. The projector screamed under the load. The predator struck again. Cracks of light formed in the field. Maya shouted, "Rask!" The commander aimed. Not yet. The field bent. Pixel jumped onto the console beside Maya. The creature saw him. It screamed, then charged. The field shattered. Exactly as Maya expected. The creature flew straight toward them. Maya grabbed Pixel and dropped. Rask fired. All 4 soldiers fired with him. The predator was caught in midair. 4 energy bolts hit its exposed underside simultaneously. The creature slammed into the wall. This time, it did not move. Silence fell. Maya remained on the floor. Pixel sat on her chest. Rask kept his weapon aimed at the body. Professor Vale slowly emerged from behind the console. Is it dead? Rask scanned it. Neural activity declining. Everyone waited. 5 seconds. 10. 20. The commander finally lowered his weapon. Confirmed. The students erupted. Some shouted. Some cried. Some simply collapsed in relief. Maya lay on the floor. Pixel looked down at her. Marrow. She laughed. Yeah. You're welcome. Then Pixel began purring. The auditorium became silent again. 200 aliens stared at him. The same sound that had sent them into panic less than an hour earlier now filled the room. But it felt different. Not because the sound had changed. Because they had. Terran slowly emerged from behind a damaged desk. He stared at Pixel. That is the terror vibration? Maya scratched under Pixel's chin. Purring. Terran approached carefully. Why is it doing that? Because he's relaxed. Terran looked at the dead invisible predator. Then at the cat. He just fought an organism that killed trained security personnel. Looks like he had fun. Pixel closed his eyes. Professor Vale walked closer. Very slowly. He crouched several meters away. I believe I owe humanity an apology. Maya looked at him. For what? For classifying this animal as a macro predator. Technically, cats are predators. Professor Vale glanced at Pixel. Then perhaps our error was not the classification. What was it? We assumed predator meant monster. Maya's expression softened. Professor Vale looked toward the corpse. Your species lives beside creatures capable of killing. Sure. You befriend them. Sometimes. You protect them. Yeah. And they protect you. Maya looked at Pixel. Sometimes. Rask approached. His armor was scorched. One side of his face had been cut. But he was alive. He looked at the cat. Then at Maya. The recovered data from Meridian Dawn requires reinterpretation. Maya sat up. What do you mean? Rask opened a holographic file. The final maintenance drone transmission. A video appeared. Dark cargo corridor. Static. A terrified human voice. Then a cat ran past the camera. Torn ear. Pixel. Maya's smile disappeared. A woman appeared behind him. Blood on her uniform. Elena Voss, Rask said. The owner listed on Pixel's carrier. The video continued. Elena looked directly into the maintenance drone. If anyone finds this, do not open cargo container 12. Maya slowly turned toward Rask. His expression became uncomfortable. The video continued. There isn't one. Static. Elena looked behind herself. There are at least 6. No one in the auditorium moved. Professor Vale whispered. 6. Rask's head snapped toward the corpse. Maya stood. Elena continued. They don't show up on thermal scanners. They learn patrol schedules. They hunt anyone who separates from the group. A metallic crash sounded in the recording. Elena flinched. Pixel hissed. I've ordered everyone into escape pods. Maya frowned. The crew escaped. Rask stared at the video. Elena continued. We're launching pods without navigation signals. If the creatures detect power sources, they follow them. Maya understood. That's why the ship was empty. The video shook. They're using the cats. Professor Vale looked toward Maya. Elena laughed once despite the fear in her voice. Never thought I'd say this, but the cats can hear them. Maya looked down at Pixel. Elena continued. Pixel found 2 before they attacked. Captain says every group gets 1 cat. Professor Vale blinked. How many cats were aboard? Rask checked the manifest. 12. Terran whispered. 12. Maya almost laughed. Cargo ship. Why 12? Rodent control. Every alien face turned toward her. Maya sighed. Long story. The recording continued. We've scattered the escape pods toward the nearest traffic lanes. If this reaches Coalition space, quarantine the Meridian Dawn. Elena paused. Then looked directly into the camera. And whoever finds Pixel. Her voice broke. Take care of him. The recording ended. Maya stared at the empty hologram. The auditorium was silent. Rask finally spoke. The escape pods were never detected. Maya's jaw tightened. What sectors were searched? The immediate region. Navigation signals were disabled. Yes. So you searched for powered pods. Rask slowly looked at her. Maya continued. Elena literally told you they launched dark. Rask opened another display. His fingers moved quickly. One search region appeared. Then expanded. Professor Vale stepped closer. What are you doing? Recalculating passive trajectories. Maya looked over his shoulder. Meridian Dawn was moving at 0.06 C before engine failure. Yes. Escape pods would maintain momentum. Yes. Gravitational pull from Helix 6? Rask adjusted the calculation. New trajectories appeared. Dozens. Then one cluster converged near a small moon. The room went silent. Rask stared. Life support pods could survive 18 days in low-power mode. How long ago was the ship found? 11 days. Maya grabbed his arm. Send a rescue ship. Rask did not argue. He opened the priority channel. All coalition units near Helix 6, this is Commander Rask. Emergency rescue directive. Search coordinates transmitting now. Potential human survivors. Passive pods. No active beacon. He looked at Maya. Priority absolute. The transmission went out. Maya exhaled. Pixel pressed his head against her leg. Professor Vale looked at the cat. The animal remembered her. Maya crouched. Of course he did. After 11 days? Professor. She stroked Pixel's damaged ear. Their family. 3 hours later, the academy remained under lockdown. 4 additional transparent predators had been found. 2 dead. Both carrying claw wounds around sensory organs. 1 trapped inside a cargo elevator. 1 killed by security forces after Pixel detected it in a maintenance bay. The 6th was never found. Rask ordered the entire station evacuated by section. Nobody complained. But something else changed. Every evacuation group requested Pixel. Rask refused. The cat was exhausted. So Maya carried him through the station. Students who had once moved to the opposite side of a corridor when they saw him now followed behind him. Not too closely, but closely enough. Pixel had become the safest 5 kilograms on the station. Then, 12 hours after the first alarm, a transmission arrived. Rask entered Professor Vale's temporary command room. Maya was asleep in a chair. Pixel was asleep on Maya. Rask stopped beside them. Maya. She opened one eye. If this is another invisible spider, I quit. No. She sat up. Rask's expression was different. Almost warm. We found them. Maya stopped moving. What? Escape pods. How many? 7. Survivors. 24. Maya closed her eyes. Relief hit her so hard that she had to breathe before speaking. Elena. Rask hesitated. Maya saw the answer before he said it. 24 survivors. She looked down. Pixel lifted his head. Rask continued carefully. Captain Voss was not among them. Maya swallowed. Pixel gave a quiet sound. Mer. Maya stroked his head. Did they say what happened? Rask nodded. Elena Voss remained aboard with 2 crew members to launch the final pods manually. Maya looked away. They saved everyone else. Yes. Rask stepped closer. The survivors also confirmed something else. What? The remaining predators aboard Meridian Dawn were killed before salvage teams arrived. Maya frowned. By who? Rask looked down. Pixel was staring at him. We believe the ship's cats. Professor Vale entered just in time to hear the sentence. He stopped in the doorway. All 12. 11. The professor glanced at Pixel. Rask nodded. Security footage shows the animals operating independently throughout the ship. Maya almost smiled. Cats don't operate together. Apparently these did. Probably all hunted the same targets. Rask activated a video. A corridor appeared. A transparent predator moved slowly through the darkness. Then 2 glowing eyes appeared beneath a storage rack. Another pair appeared behind it. Then another. The predator stopped. 3 cats attacked from 3 directions. Professor Vale sat down. Without being asked. The footage continued. The cats did not fight like soldiers. There was no formation. No command. No strategy anyone could identify. They simply moved. One distracted. One struck. Another retreated. Then returned. The predator could not predict them. Because there was nothing predictable to understand. Rask paused the video. Coalition tactical computers cannot model their behavior. Maya grinned. Neither can humans. How do you control them? We don't. Professor Vale slowly looked at her. You live voluntarily with predators you cannot control. Yes. And consider this normal. Yes. Your species is exhausting. Maya laughed. Rask looked at Pixel. The Interstellar Biological Registry requires an immediate classification update. Professor Vale folded his arms. Predator. Rask nodded. Agreed. Maya raised an eyebrow. Still going with predator? Professor Vale looked at her. You corrected me earlier. Predator does not mean monster. He looked down at Pixel. Predator is simply what it is. Rask continued. Threat classification? Professor Vale considered. Context dependent. Maya smiled. Now you're learning. Terran appeared hesitantly at the doorway. Maya? Yeah. The small alien stepped inside. He was holding something. A piece of dried protein from his lunch ration. Would Pixel accept this? Maya inspected it. Probably. Terran approached. Very slowly. Pixel watched him. Terran stopped 2 meters away. His entire body was trembling. Maya almost told him he did not have to continue. But Terran took another step. Then another. He held out the food. Pixel sniffed. Terran froze. The cat stepped forward. Sniffed again. Then gently took the treat. Terran's eyes widened. He did not remove my limb. No. Pixel chewed. Then rubbed his face against Terran's hand. The alien almost fainted. What is it doing? Marking you with his scent. Terran looked horrified. Maya laughed. It means he likes you. Terran stared at the small animal. Slowly, carefully, he touched the top of Pixel's head. Pixel began purring. Terran froze. The ancient terror response of his species screamed at him to run. That frequency meant predator. Danger. But Terran did not run. He looked at Maya. This means happiness? Usually. Terran touched Pixel again. The purring became louder. The small alien smiled. Professor Vale watched in silence. Then looked toward Rask. Commander. Yes. I believe the next semester's xenobiology curriculum requires revision. What will you call the course? Professor Vale thought for a moment. Then looked at Maya. Living with predators. Lessons from humanity. Maya laughed. I want guest lecture pay. You almost destroyed my holographic projector. I saved your class. You destroyed 37 desks. The invisible monster destroyed most of those. You climbed through a ventilation shaft expressly forbidden to students. That part did happen. Professor Vale's feathers rose. Maya held up both hands. Fine. We'll negotiate. Rask turned toward the door. Maya called after him. Commander. He stopped. What about Pixel? Rask looked back. The animal remains technically part of an active investigation. Pixel immediately jumped onto Maya's lap. Rask stared. Maya stared back. Good luck with that. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Rask sighed. I will recommend temporary placement under human supervision. Temporary? Do not push your luck. Maya smiled. Pixel curled into a ball. Professor Vale looked down at him. Human supervision appears to be an optimistic description. Fair. The professor walked toward the doorway, then stopped. Maya? Yeah. When you initially heard the recording. What about it? You were amused. Yes. And yet after hearing the secondary signal, you immediately became concerned. Yes. Professor Vale glanced toward Pixel. What did you understand that the rest of us did not? Maya looked down at the cat. For a moment she did not answer. Then she smiled. You heard a monster. Professor Vale waited. I heard somebody's pet. She scratched Pixel behind his torn ear. And if someone's pet is scared enough to sound like a monster. She looked toward the dead containment monitor displaying the transparent predator. Then maybe you should ask what scared it. Professor Vale remained still. Then slowly nodded. He left. Weeks passed. The Meridian Dawn survivors returned to Earth. The unidentified predators were officially named Vossian Vale Hunters in honor of Captain Elena Voss. Coalition scientists spent months studying their biology. They discovered extraordinary camouflage, advanced hunting intelligence, the ability to regulate body temperature, near total silence while moving, and an instinctive attraction toward isolated prey. Every report described them as among the most sophisticated ambush predators ever encountered. But buried deep in the official xenobiological database was one additional observation. Under natural predators, a single species had been listed. Felis catus, common house cat. The entry caused significant controversy. Scientists demanded controlled studies. Military officers demanded tactical research. Agricultural colonies requested thousands of cats before the research had even finished. Rask denied almost every request. Humanity had explained repeatedly that cats were not equipment. They could not be deployed like automated drones. They could not be programmed. They could not be ordered to patrol. And they definitely could not be guaranteed to care about whatever problem their owners wanted them to solve. This confused the coalition tremendously. Then came the question that confused them even more. If they are so unreliable, Professor Vale asked Maya during a recorded interview, why have humans kept them for thousands of years? Maya looked down at Pixel. The cat was sleeping across her notes. She had tried moving him twice. Both attempts had failed. Because reliability isn't the point. Then what is? Maya looked toward the camera. Trust. Professor Vale tilted his head. You just stated they cannot be commanded. Exactly. I do not understand. You build a machine because you want obedience. Maya scratched Pixel's head. You build a friendship because you want choice. Professor Vale became silent. Maya continued. A dog might protect you because it loves you. A horse might carry you because it trusts you. A cat might ignore you for 6 hours, knock your cup off a table, steal your chair. Pixel stretched. And then one day, when something comes through the darkness that you can't see. She smiled. It stands between you and it anyway. Professor Vale looked at Pixel for a long time. Humanity has a strange definition of friendship. Maya leaned back. You should see what we do with dogs. Professor Vale's feathers immediately rose. Dogs? Maya's grin widened. Yeah. What is a dog? Pixel opened one eye. Maya looked directly into the camera. Oh, Professor. She laughed. You are absolutely not ready for dogs. The recording ended there. And 6 months later, when the Interstellar Academy introduced its first official seminar on Terran companion species, enrollment exceeded the auditorium's capacity within 11 minutes. Professor Vale opened the first lecture before a room filled with nervous students. Behind him appeared the holographic image of a gray house cat with one damaged ear. Pixel, guardian survivor of the Meridian Dawn. Professor Vale looked across the silent room. Then pressed a button. Dozens of students flinched. But nobody ran. Professor Vale smiled. Class. Pixel's purr filled the auditorium. Today we are going to learn the most important lesson humanity has taught this academy. He paused. A predator is not always your enemy. The image changed. Pixel appeared sitting beside Maya. And sometimes, Professor Vale looked directly toward the students. The thing that frightens the monster is sleeping on the human's pillow. Far away on Earth, Maya watched the broadcast from her apartment. Pixel was curled beside her. She glanced at him. You're famous now. Pixel ignored her. You saved an academy. Nothing. You helped discover 24 survivors. Nothing. You got an alien professor to rewrite an entire course. Pixel opened one eye. Maya smiled. So what do you want in return? Pixel stood, walked across the couch, and knocked Maya's glass of water onto the floor. She stared at it. Pixel stared back. Maya sighed. Of course. The cat jumped onto her lap, turned around twice, curled into a ball, and began to purr. Maya scratched behind his ear. Yeah. Outside the apartment window, ships crossed the night sky. Human vessels. Alien vessels. Ships belonging to civilizations that had once looked toward Earth and seen only a dangerous planet filled with impossible creatures. Now they were beginning to understand something else. Humanity had never survived its world by defeating everything dangerous. Sometimes humans fought. Sometimes they ran. Sometimes they built walls. But sometimes, they looked directly at the predator in the darkness, held out a hand, and said, "You look hungry." Thousands of years later, the stars were discovering the result. And somewhere in the interstellar biological registry, beneath pages of warnings about claws, teeth, reflexes, night vision, hunting instincts, and predatory behavior, someone had added a final sentence to the official entry for the common house cat. It had been personally approved by Commander Rask. Do not mistake small size for weakness. Below it, Professor Vale had added another. Do not mistake predation for cruelty. And finally, under both statements, someone had anonymously inserted one final line. Everyone suspected Maya. No one could prove it. The line simply said, "And if the human's cat suddenly starts staring at an empty corner of the room, you should probably start staring at it too." If you enjoyed this HFY story, hit the like button, subscribe for more science fiction stories about humanity's strangest advantages, and tell me in the comments what alien civilization should discover about Earth next. Because if the galaxy thinks house cats are terrifying, just wait until they meet what humans call man's best friend.